Kia ora everyone, it's James here at Paku. So we said we're going to open up the design process for this Paku Tiheru project that we're attempting to get off the ground, and Johnson's away on a really cool art project at the moment, so I thought it was a good time for me to jump in and take a bit of a break from that creative side and pull back the curtain, show you how we do things behind the scenes. Quite a few people have been asking how we go from those Facebook comments, the random whakaaro that we get, the talks that we have with people, and how we get to a design brief, how we choose what concepts we're going to try and make. And in a Western sense, there's lots of midterms and processes you could go through, like design synthesis or affinity mapping, lots of different names of things you could do. What we have been working on here with Paku, I kind of like to talk about it from Rāranga whakaaro, weaving those ideas, that kōrero that we have, weaving that into how we're going to approach the mahi. So first thing we do, we book every comment, every idea, every observation, every talk that we've had with someone, we put those on sticky notes. And look, we're not judging anything at this stage, it's about quantity. There's no pre-processing, it's get the quote, put it on, get the idea, put it on a note. Duplicates, great, go for it, they're encouraged. If more people are saying the same thing independently, it's a signal, something you should be paying attention to, so we just lay them all out. Next, now we want to start weaving that together. So you want to create groups, get those double ups, get those common things. Some of them are really obvious and you'll create a theme straight away. Others, they might need a bit of a stretching. Two things that are kind of close, rewrite that note as one note, maybe it now goes in another group really easily. It's not really about organizing comments, it's about finding the patterns. It's that subtitle that you're going to put over that group of notes. And so this is where I've actually found it best to go digital. So there's lots of really good tools out there, Mid or Figma. We've been playing around in Canva a bit recently, so I thought I'd give it a go in there. And I'll just jump into that Canva board now. So this is literally the Canva board we've been using for the Paku Tiheru project so far. As you can see, there's lots going on in here. Here's all of these notes that you saw before, all just turned into digital post-it notes. And again, here's all of these grouped again. Try and use different colors because it gets a bit crazy. You're trying to find the themes and the commonalities. If you're struggling, this one here, if you're struggling to get it down, try taking two dissimilar notes and just write them as one, see if it makes sense. So you can see here's these ones that were grouped as simple, clean design. I've put some titles to these to try and sort of group them together in a way that sounds right. Grounded, not decorative, really came through a lot. Open-ended function, sets and sizes, multiple environments, transporting play, and we were already, some things that were already ideas. Awesome, keep them in mind, and then just, some big ups, which is always fun to get. The next thing we did, now that we've got these sets, is what are we going to do with them? How are we going to turn them into concepts that we're going to use? So take those groups. So again, here's those multiple environment groups. Ask some partai. How do you want to answer to it? If they flow all good, great, just start writing. Sometimes it's best to make categories that fit your idea. And for this one, I thought there's the functional thing, a child's going to use this. Behavioral thing, what are they thinking about when they're doing this? What behaviors are they exhibiting? And then if something gets a bit too big, I just went bigger partai. What are those bigger philosophical things? If those categories don't work for you, lots more you could do. You could do emotional things, environmental things, things that are about the material it's made from, what system is it part of. But again, I thought, functional, behavioral, bigger. And you're just trying to go, here's all these multiple environment things. What makes a tool feel useful at these different things, at these different places? How durable does it need to be if it's across all these different environments? For these sets and sizes, how can it change across different ages and body sizes? So from a piki to adult to a grandparent. What happens when tamariki and adults are using the versions of the same tool? Should there be a bigger one for an adult? Should there be a smaller one for a piki? Grounded, not decorative. How can we reference traditional forms without becoming a reproduction? It's pretty important to us at Paku. We aren't creating the exact thing as it was, we're creating our version of it. And this, the bigger ones, what does it mean to continue tradition rather than reproducing? How can usefulness itself become a form of cultural storytelling? Are we going to answer that with Paku Tiheru? Maybe not, but it's a good thing to ask yourself. And again, so you're doing lots of questions all the time. What partai would you make if you're just thinking about open-ended function? If you're just thinking about simple, clean design? If you're just thinking about transporting play? So you'll get tons of partai there, and there's heaps. List them all out. So group and then make like an encompassing one, because there's going to be double ups that are across all of those different subcategories. How might the Tiheru move naturally between environments? So that's encompassing all of these 4 or 5, 6 different partai in there. And I did that a lot. Sometimes, there's 4, sometimes there's 7, sometimes there's just 1. But that reduced partai list, those encompassing questions, list them out again. And then what I find really good is to turn that into like I call it an opportunity statement, but it's Paku Tiheru must do this thing. It must do this thing. It must move naturally between beach, mara, home, and water. Rather than saying, how might it do this? It must do this. And once you say it must do this, you go, does it really must? Does it really have to? What are the things that's still a really long list. You can't design all of these things. Well, it'd take a long time to. So what's going to just use your intuition. What's really going to what does it really have to do? And for us, it really does have to move naturally between all these different environments. It does have to support transporting play. That came through my playset whānau are going to go, of course it does, but I really had to go back into my knowledge of when the kids were there and go, oh yeah, transporting itself is something kids love doing. Support carrying at different ages, strengths and context of play. So that's across sizes, that's across people and their age groups, and not just peppy to toddlers to primary school kids. Like it's to adults and grandparents and people with disabilities. It's got to go across them. And then we want to reference traditional forms. Of course, it wouldn't be a tiheru if we didn't, but not a reproduction. And then I just reduce those again. Move naturally between environments, made for transporting play, supporting different ages and stages of play, and cultural grounding. So I've moved this one across here. You'll see why in a second. So I would call these my design drivers. These are the things that will literally drive the design. I come up with a concept. Is it doing these things? Is it doing all of these things? But that's not really going to drive concepts. Those are going to shape them a little bit different. So how are we going to brainstorm what we're going to do? How are we going to choose what tools we use to conceptualize? So back to these lists and back to these partai. What's some opportunity statements? Straight from this, not from the questions themselves, but just if you had to encompass them in 1 or 2 or 3, what's the opportunity for this section? Not across sections, for multiple environments, 4 sets and sizes. And, try and think about like design or create a something. What are the things? So create a tiheru that fits naturally at the beach and the mara and inside the home. Like that's a challenge that you're going to try and give yourself very specifically. Design a form that adapts intuitively to different materials, water, sand, leaves, shells, soil. Think of all of them. For the open-ended function one, carrying, digging, scooping, pouring are all expected. What are the unexpected things a Paku Tiheru could do? Now this didn't pop up here, didn't come through those partai, but still a pretty cool thing to do from a conceptual perspective. We would have lost it if we hadn't gone through this process. How would tamariki use a traditional tiheru in a way that was not intended? And that would have happened. There would have been little kids around picking up tiheru and not using them in the right way. And that's going to happen with this as well. So think about it. Simple, clean design. Just what is the most simple way to do it? What is lightweight but durable? And then that transporting play. My youngest would probably use this for carrying more than digging. Transporting schemas had to, again, go back and figure out what that was, but designed specifically for the act of transporting between locations. A design that can easily be passed between tamariki when it's full. That could be a cool thing to conceptualize. And again, all of those opportunities, I just put them in a list from here, just copied and pasted them, turned them back into these little digital post-its, and tried to group them. Always grouping, always trying to get back down to something. Now for this one, you can have more if you want. Like we went to, for the design drivers, 3 or 4 is a lot. For conceptual work, as long as you're willing to put in the mahi, you can have as much of these as possible, but just know that this is going to be a separate set of work for you to do. So these different ages, stackable forms, collaborative play. Okay, to support collaborative and intergenerational play across homes, ECUs, kura, and shared environments through scalable whānau-based systems. I like that statement. That is going to be a challenge for us later as we try and actually conceptualize what this thing is. Design for transporting, past when full. Actually, okay, bring those back into one thing. Encourage transporting between locations. And you'll notice that it's actually just these two things combined. These evolving of traditional forms, subtle grounded references rather than reproduction. Yep, totally. Let's keep that top of mind. Create space for unexpected behaviors, adapt naturally across different environments, materials and forms of play. And hey, I'm an engineer, so I'm going to think about lightweight and durable, and I'm going to think about simple design, left them by themselves. So what are we doing with these? Well, I already said some of the words, but a gatekeeper, cultural grounding. I moved it to the side. It is the basis of what we do at Paku. It wouldn't be a Paku tool if it wasn't in Te Ao Māori, the world. It's got to have its cultural grounding. Everything's got to pass through that gate. Design drivers, these are things we're really going to think about as we are ranking our concepts. Does this thing that we conceptualize, does it do all of these 3 things and still have a cultural grounding? And then from what we just looked at, the concept drivers, here's what we're going to do to actually drive the mahi that makes the concepts. If you were in a traditional business at this point, and not that Paku's not, we'd do a design brief. Again, I'm gonna be sharing these Canva documents. Have a look through them. Happy to share. This design brief, if you've done all of this mahi, it's gonna flow pretty easily. Use this as a template if you want. You go and Google what a design brief template is. There's lots of them out there. It's really, if you were having to present to a board or a pitch to investors or something, this is kind of would help them through. If you printed this out on your A4, this is something they could leave with. And you'll notice that we've got, here's some words you've already seen: move naturally between the beach, the mow, and the home, support transporting play, referencing traditional forms without becoming a reproduction. I'm putting some of the post-its in as actual comments. This is what we've found. Our target consumer, who are we designing for? Well, let's be fair, we're designing for tamariki. 2-year-olds don't have a huge amount of disposable cash. So, we're culturally aware, design conscious, parent, caregiver, educator, whānau member, seeking open-ended tools that support meaningful outdoor play, creativity, and connection to Te Ao Māori. Market research, what are we going up against? I'm not doing numbers here, but, we're going to get beach and sand play toys. We know what they are. They're buckets and shovels. We've gone to Kmart in the warehouse and Bunnings and Mitre 10, and we know what they are. Water play and sensory products, lots of cool stuff in kura at the moment. Water wheels and silicon scoops and, just loose play. It's really cool stuff. Gardening tools, hey, we're already there. Tuki and Timor, Paku tools, already in that outdoor space, and we'll be competing with those. And then those loose play, open-ended, improvised products. This is the milk bottle that's cut up into a tiheru. This is the pots and pans that sit at the play center and get used as a bucket when they're not actually for that. And what's our opportunity? So this is where you're talking about your design drivers. The move naturally between home, mara, water, supporting carrying across different ages and strengths, supporting transporting play, and then our cultural gatekeeper. It's sitting above all of that. aesthetic, trends, styling. It's going to guide the project at all levels. Consumer value proposition. What's our big one-liner? Our one for Toki and Timo was discover Aotearoa through play. I still really like that, but it might not be appropriate for Tiheru as we go through the process. Here's our design drivers more mapped out. And our gatekeeper. What's the product range? No idea. Like you'll remember back from the design drivers that, are they stackable forms? Are they items? Are they a whānau based system of, little items and big items? Don't know yet. So we still have to let the concept phase drive this. And then here's our paku design process that we go through. We're sort of sitting, maybe we're a little bit behind schedule. Probably are. We want to be somewhere. We're sitting here in June and we want to be releasing tools in August so that we can get to December. This is all the nuts and bolts of it. But what are we actually going to do to get there? We've got to get some concepts, and we already have some, but how are we going to get there using the work that we did? We've done it for a reason. And you'll note here's this gatekeeper design drivers and concept drivers. Took these design drivers and you split them out. So they're going to be, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 concept drivers. That's 7 bits of mahi that we're going to do that will drive the concepts. Some of the easier ones, probably those engineering, those designy sort of ones, feel lightweight but durable. When you have two sort of opposing drivers of what that design could be, I like to put a big graph up and just start going, okay, what's the lightest but least durable thing? And it could be just a post-it note. It could be, if you've got a massive piece of paper, actually start doing some drawings and noting down what that little sketch is. So that's your milk bottle. That's not very durable, but it's the lightest thing. What's the heaviest, most durable thing? Like some cast iron Tiheru pot thing. Like it's going to last forever, but it's super heavy. What's the most durable but lightest thing? Some crazy super tech carbon fiber, or the most least durable but heaviest. So clay or earth. So you've got extremes, but then, you start do a concept that sort of sits in here or sits in here. Some cool ideas can come from that. Another one that kind of sits on that is the most simple way to design a paku tiheru. Well, that's kind of cool. So what's the most simple thing? But actually, what's the most complicated thing? And if it had a single part or multiple parts. So what's the most simple multi-part thing you can think of? And what always pops into my mind, Lego. Tons of parts, but super simple. Could there be a paku tiheru Lego thing? Or the most simple single part, the most complicated single part, the most complicated multi-part. So this is, Legos over here, and then that Lego Technic stuff, or, that's over here. Again, cool ideas can come when you start trying to populate the areas of these graphs with, the unintended things. Subtle grounded references. So again, we're at our gatekeeper here. So there's no conceptual phase for this, but I've put it in here because we went to Te Papa. There's the Te Papa archive. There's just the internet in general. There's all the talks that we've had so far. Put everything in here, and it sort of becomes a design library. It's that reference you go back to as you're designing that multi-part complicated thing. You go, oh yeah, back in the design library, there was that one Tiheru that I saw in an image that's still overseas in some museum, and it was done in a different way. Cool. Now you've got a reference that you can come back to. Encouraging transporting play between locations. Well, let's split out those transporting behaviors. So, did a bit of research. There's relays and carry chains, one-handed transfer. Is it full? Is it empty? How do you pull without stopping the movement? Can you do it together, transporting as the play itself? And this is just, let's do a carry chain and relay, kind of the same thing. Do some just straight brainstorming. So if you had to optimize for chains of tamariki, all fire bucketing themselves around, how would you design for that? If it was designed to be handed from one person to another easily, well, buckets aren't actually that easy to hand from one kid to another kid. So how do you make it easy for that? Pour without stopping. So passing doesn't always mean handing the item over. It means handing the thing inside the item. So how do you pour water from one tiheru into another? Different big bits of paper, and use each of those as a prompt to come up with concepts. What else? Adapt naturally across different environments, materials, and forms of play. So again, we're going to split these up. And carrying materials, so by the material, not what the tiheru is made from, but the material it's carrying. So challenge it. What's hard about carrying water? What's hard about carrying sand or shells or leaves or compost or mud? Mud's sticky. Leaves are very light and could blow away in the wind. How would you design a tiheru to combat them all blowing out? Does it need a lid? Mud's sticky. Is it made from Teflon? Is it made to have like a little button in there that squirts out detergent and makes it nice and slippy and clean? Do the same for forms of play challenges. That transporting play, we've already done that. So now that you're doing just transporting or digging or water or collecting or imaginative play or cooperative play, design something just to be done with cooperative play. You're trying to simplify the concept you're doing for, and then same with environmental challenges. Not climate change, but if we're at the beach versus the backyard versus the awa, if you had to design it just for a kid playing at the awa, what would it do? So we got, this one's cool. Support collaborative and intergenerational play across homes, issues, kura. So there's a Western design thing, relationship mapping. But in this sense, I think it's more important to think about it as whakapapa mapping. So it's not about the object, it's about the relationship that the two people have that you're thinking about. So write each person on a separate note. So from Pepe to grandparents to kura to your aunt and uncle or a friend. And draw lines between those people and define a relationship. So a toddler and a grandparent are going to have a different relationship than an aunt and a parent. So who's teaching who's giving something to the other person, who's playing together, how are they playing together? A grandparent is going to play with tamariki different than a friend is going to play with their tamariki friend, with a toddler, a tuakana relationship where you've got an older kid and a younger kid. Who's helping who's passing things to who. Define that relationship and then design a tiheru to fit in that relationship. And once you've done all of those, I try and leave the unexpected one to the end. So create space for unexpected behaviors, play stacking, or something like that. You want to map all of those play types and deliberately combine them to create crossover. So if you were doing a collecting and cooperative, how would you design a tiheru just to be something that can be collective in a cooperative way? How would water and imaginative play work together? How would sensory and digging go together? I guess what I mean by that is like sensory play being sound or vibration, or if there was a whistle in it and as you filled it up, that whistle got higher or lower, like, as you're drinking out of a bottle and you blow on the top of it and it changes notes. So that's kind of a sensory thing, but it's combined with a digging tool. Or a constructive tool that's designed with a transporting tool. So you've picked up sand, and then that sand, you can tip it upside down, it becomes a mold, like a bucket that becomes a sandcastle. Another one is misuse mapping. So this would have happened. Some kid would have picked up a tiheru way back 100 years ago and started using it in a way that was not meant to be used. But they were playing. They were having fun. So let's think about those misuse cases and design for that. If the intended use is, a tiheru was a waka baler for carrying water, for scooping water, we're thinking about it as a digging tool as well. But if it was misused as a container, it's my treasure holder, it's my shell collector, it's my worm carrier, would you design it differently? If it was, a waka or a cargo ship, would you design it differently? Well, yeah, because you'd want it to float. If it was an instrument, a drum, a water instrument, how would you design it differently? Would the packaging become something that stretches over the top and becomes a drum, but you designed the item differently so that it could be a drum? And then object transformation. This is a nice one. Like if it wasn't a tiheru, if you were thinking of it as a bowl, you design it differently, because a kid might look at it and go, this is my bowl today. This is my waka today. This is my basket today. So think about it in those forms, and how would you change it to meet the kid where they're playing. So lots of mahi for us to go through, but like I said, we're opening up the process. So you notice these at the edge. Add your comments. What we'd love you to do, I'm going to share these Canva screens and chuck them up on our socials, and I'd love you to add a comment to whatever area you think could be cool. You have some thoughts. You've heard me talking for quite a while now. What's the most simple way to design a paku tiheru? Add something in here. So I've just got onto another one of my email accounts. I know we have lots of them. Invited myself to it. And so if I wanted to add a comment to here, there you go, comment, press it up here. And then when I go back to my version of this thing, James has made a comment. That's cool. But it's not actually going to write it in there. It's going to be a comment that I can see, that everyone can see. But yeah, please go for your life. Add any comments, any ideas that you've had through here, and I'll start populating. We'll start populating these conceptual blocks, and we'll start putting our own images of what we've actually done in here as well. All right, that's a long as video, and if you've made it to the end, I'd be very surprised. But hey, thanks for your time.